Let's see if this is working, Donna. And we're gonna see what happens. I'm hopeful that we have done this and we have made this work. I'm gonna mute this. We're gonna make sure everything's muted. That was quite the audio remix we had on the last.
It was.
I'm like, oh my gosh, what is happening? The world is ending. I just broke the internet. Oh, how's it going to everybody out there? I'm 99% sure we're live right now. Oh, Amy says it's working. Hooray.
Oh, yay.
We've got everybody in the house. Hopefully, Dr. Karen Lee is able to jump back on. Karen, if you're here, I know Cynthia, it was a little stressful. Oh my gosh, you've never seen me like trying to have to think really hard. I've got my cup of coffee here and I'm like, okay, I got to redo all the settings. I don't know what happened, you guys. It was crazy. How many of you were on when we did the first stream like 10 minutes ago and it went all haywire? Was anybody on here? No.
Well, you as cool as a cucumber.
Oh, it's the technology, right? And this is, I would say, Donna, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is the key to being a successful food photographer photographer in general is being able to keep a cool head when things go wrong, right?
Roll with the punches and pretend nothing's wrong. When inside, you know the story about the duck that looks calm in the water, but underneath they're flapping like crazy. That's the food photographer or a photographer in general.
Absolutely. Looks like Paul thought it was hilarious. Well, I'm glad you got a little comedy this morning. Paul, I can never promise that these things will go perfectly, but that's why we're all here together, right? Big happy family. So yes, Karen Lee is in the house. We'll introduce her momentarily, but more importantly, I want to introduce our special guest today, who I'm just beyond thrilled to get to introduce to you all. I have Donna Crous with me here today, who is a food photographer based in London, out of the UK. And if you've not checked out her work, you can find all the information linked down in the description box below. She's incredible. Her Instagram handle is @Donna Crous. Yeah?
Yeah, that's it.
And she has many accolades under her belt, including, being an accomplished cookbook photographer, which I know a lot of you are excited to talk about today, but also having been nominated for the Pink Lady Food Photographer of the Year Awards, which we will also get into because that is an amazing opportunity for a lot of food photographers. So with that introduction, Donna, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. I mean, it's such a privilege to be invited to talk on your show. I love your show. I watch it all the time. And I can't believe that I'm actually joining you today. This is incredible.
Well, we first connected a couple weeks ago. I had followed you on Instagram. I don't know if it was a Pink Lady thing that inspired me or how, but I had already been following you. But you had reached out and with a picture of a group of you all together having a little happy hour.
Yeah, so through your bike shop group on Facebook, we started it was actually announced on your Facebook group. One of the ladies put together a little London group for us, and we all went out and we met up and we sat and we had our meal and our glasses of wine and we just spoke food photography. It was amazing. Oh, and we decided we're going to do it on a regular basis. So if anybody else wants to join us, please let me know and we'll add you to the list. It's not a closed group at all. It's just a great place to kind of get together and talk the same stuff because we all have so much in common and we all enjoy it. But it's just, it's good to just sit around and talk to people who don't sit and yawn and go, oh no, not more food photography.
Right? Because a lot of times it can be a little solitary, the work that we do. So it's nice to have friends.
Well, that's exactly it. I mean, if you work from home, like most of us do, it can be quite lonely and you don't feel as if you connect with other people as much. So it's good to meet people face to face and put a name to a face or an Instagram handle. And it's just lovely.
Yeah. And in terms of, I've already had a couple people comment in the comment section that they, of course, love your accent for those of us here in the US. Sorry. All of a sudden I got distracted by something that was happening on the screen. I'm so distractible. So for those who are curious, I mean, obviously you're based in London, but that's not necessarily where you got your accent.
No, I am South African. I moved here 5 years ago from Cape Town. So Cape Town's my home. And we've been here for 5 years. I don't know if we're going to stay in the UK. My husband likes to move around a little bit, so we could end up somewhere else, or we could end up back in Cape Town, or we could end up staying here. But when the world's so much smaller these days, you can move around. So yeah, South African accent.
Well, we definitely have a lot of people from all over the world here in the house today. Of course, Dr. Karen Lee, who we'll talk about in a moment. I believe she's based in New York. We've got Berlin, Sweden, people from all over the world. So yeah, for those of you, I'm already seeing some people in the comments saying, hey, we want to get in on this London group that meets up. And there's also, I know a couple of other groups that folks who've just started out groups. All you want to do is make sure to join the Bite Shot Facebook group, which is just facebook.com/groups/the Bite Shot. It might even be linked in the description box. If it's not, I'll be sure to add it after the video. But if you go ahead and request access, if you're not already a member, it's free to join. And it's just it's about 10,000 food photographers globally now in that group. And so feel free to just say, hey, I am based in such and such place. And, is there anybody else who wants to meet up? Because it's a great way to make friends.
Well, Amanda runs it, and I'll ask her just to pop a note in it again and just say, guys, let's just add extra people. If you're interested, put your name down and we can add you to the group. I think we've got another planned in August.
Sounds like Paul and Elspeth are both in for it. So.
Oh, excellent. Excellent.
Well, let me pull up my notes now. I want to make sure that we keep, because we have a lot of ground to cover today, because I've just got so much that I think that this audience really wants to know about your own personal experience, Donna. But, we all come into food photography, I think, a variety of different ways. Some of us intentionally, others of us, myself being one, more unintentionally. So if you could just share with everybody, what got you into food photography in the first place? What started that journey out for you?
Well, when we moved here from Cape Town, when we moved to the UK, I started my own blog. And it was purely, a lot of it was out of boredom, because I didn't have any friends. And it was just sort of something to fill my day with, because I hadn't actually started to work properly. And then I found with blogging that I'm not actually a great writer. I don't enjoy writing, and it's just not for me. But you've got to have a blog that attracts people. So for me, I had to turn to photography. I do have an art background, and I had studied photography. I'd done a 6-week course in Cape Town at the Cape Town School of Photography. But it was enough to teach me to shoot off auto and shoot on manual. I didn't touch my camera for a couple of years after that, but I suppose between the art and the photography, I had an idea of composition and that sort of thing. And I decided to really sort of hone my skills for my blog into photography. And from there, I sort of just started to grow it. And I think blogging is a great conduit to a career. And it's, you don't always end up blogging. The bloggers I know have ended up becoming nutritionists or personal trainers or photographers or stylists, or it's a great way of moving on to other areas. And for me, it just happened to be food photography.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so food too. Yeah.
Sorry.
And you've always enjoyed food. Yeah. That's been something you've been passionate about for a long time.
I'm an absolute foodie. I run my blog that I run is a health blog. So, and that was, I think, another reason why I really, it's a paleo-based blog. And to be honest, paleo baking in general is not the most exciting. It's pretty boring looking. And I think that's why I started sort of really styling quite heavily, is to try and make it that little bit more attractive and a bit more appealing to people. Because there's no sort of flowers or any exciting rise that comes out of a paleo bake. I felt that I had to try and bring out something else in the food to attract people to the website. And so, I love my food. And I suppose that's where my whole career has been based around, is being the food and getting to know other foodies in the industry.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things, when I look at your images, one of the things that just really strikes me is the character that you're able to capture, the sense of mood, and your styling is just beautiful. Are you doing most of the styling yourself, or are you collaborating with others?
No, I do all the styling myself. It's just over the years, I've learned to sort of put together things. And sometimes a shoot will take me 15, 20 minutes, and other times it'll take me 5 hours. It just depends on what I'm doing. And I enjoy that. That's the part I really enjoy. I think for me, it's about building a picture and moving little bits and pieces and almost like a chess game, moving this and putting that there and the right positions. And I'm self-taught. I have no sort of training in styling at all. So for me, there's no theory to it. It just happens. Just put it together and let's see if it works. And I'll take a load of different shots with different positions and different angles and just see what we can come out with.
Yeah. Well, and I think that a huge part of it, I mean, certainly there are a lot of really great things that we can learn out there and great mentors and work we can look to. But I think that too, and my impression of your work is that there's a lot of intuition involved and really trusting your intuition, that sometimes we second guess ourselves. But that I think you do a really great job of remaining true. Do you ever get in a situation, like, have you been in a situation where you felt like, you're second guessing that and you've got these little voices in your head maybe saying, oh, is that really right? I don't know. Is that something that ever happens for you?
All the time. And every day. And even when it comes to choosing the image, is it the right one? Is it because have I become too emotionally invested in it? I mean, constantly while I'm shooting, I'm sort of thinking, is this good? And sometimes I have to actually download the image and then look at it a couple of days later to actually really get a true indication of what's happening with it. Because I can get so emotionally invested in it that I'll look at it and think, oh no, that's terrible. It's just not working. And then 2 or 3 days later, I'll look at it and go, you know what, that's actually a really good shot. Sometimes I just put too much effort into it and then I put too much pressure on myself. And then other times I sort of start to think, oh, well, because because there is a bit of a science to it in terms of how to position and your triangles, your shapes. And sometimes I have to sort of step away and go, take a deep breath. Okay, let's go down to basics again, and let's recreate this and try and get some elements back into place. And then I'll find it'll fall into place. But sheets can be pretty stressful when they don't work out. You can end up feeling a little bit flat,
Absolutely. So going back to kind of your journey, so it started in blogging and really kind of morphed. What was sort of that turning point when suddenly it went from blogging more into photography and you were getting hired to do this work?
Well, for me, there were 2 big turning points for me. So first of all, getting my first cookbook deal with Canon, which we'll probably discuss a little bit later. But the main one I think was being nominated as a finalist for Pink Lady Food Photographer of the Year 3 years ago. That opened a lot of doors for me here in the UK, particularly. And it also just gave me confidence where I thought, oh, hold on a sec, maybe I can actually do this. Maybe this isn't just a hobby, And I think that was a big turning point for me. That confidence-wise, that was a huge turning point for me. Just to go, okay, well, maybe I've been recognized on a different platform, and this is great. I can actually do this. And then the cookbook deal came through with Karen, and initially I sort of said to her, oh no, I can't do this. I'm not capable of it. And she talked me off the edge of the cliff. And she said, yes, you can do this. You'll be fine. And it was good. It was good.
So what were the circumstances under which, because for those who aren't familiar, the Pink Lady Food Photographer of the Year Awards, which I have the link to it linked down below. It's a great place too to just get some wonderful inspiration. It's an international food photography contest, really celebrating our industry and what we do, and a real wide variety of kinds of images and creatives. And so that happens on an annual basis. And so Donna, what was the situation like? What motivated you to apply to that? What was the image you submitted? What was kind of going through your head then?
So I'd seen little bits and pieces about it, and I'd logged on and I was receiving their newsletter, and they do a countdown. Sort of the last week, they do 5 days, 3 days, 4 days to get your submissions in. And it was on about the 4th day, I thought, I wonder if I should enter. And then I sort of talked myself out of it. I thought, no, I'm not going to. I'm not ready. I'm not a photographer. I just do this as a hobby. Everybody will laugh at me. And about 2 days before, it just sort of, I don't know, it's obviously a frame of mind. It popped up again. I was like, I'm doing it. This is it. I'm actually going to enter. And I entered. I submitted a couple of images of mine and didn't even think anything of it. Really just totally forgot about it. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, they're really good. They don't leave you hanging for a long time. That's the nice thing about this competition. And about 2 or 3 weeks later, I got an email to say, congratulations, you've been shortlisted. And I was just totally blown away. I was like, what, me? And then another 2 weeks later, I got another email to say you're a finalist, and these are the details, and then the invitation to the award ceremony, which is pretty spectacular, let me tell you.
Is it?
Yeah, it's pretty impressive award ceremony. So yeah, I sort of arrived there, arrived on Mars at this award ceremony, and it was just mind blowing. I mean, to see they take your images and they blow them up and they put them on the walls and they do this beautiful exhibition, and just to walk in, and there's something special about seeing your picture up on a wall in an exhibition. That's pretty mind blowing. And and that's kind of from there. I was placed third in that competition. And then every year it's just sort of become a thing now where I have to submit, terrified every year, but I still do it. And,
you just close your eyes and push the button and go, okay.
That's exactly it. Fingers crossed. Hit it. Let's go.
Now let's real quick share that. I've got that image here to share with everybody. This is the apple cake, correct?
No, it's the fudge.
Oh, the fudge. Let's see. Hold on. I got the wrong image here. Let's see the fudge. Do I have the fudge? Apple tartlets. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Oh, that is beautiful. Okay, here we go. Let's go ahead and share your image here. The one that is that we've been discussing here. Does everybody see it here on the screen? Let's make sure everybody's seeing it. It's a beautiful image. What kind of went into the creation of this image, Donna?
Well, what went into that? I was so out of my depth in those days, trying to photograph. I was just trying to make a moody sort of feeling to it that I just I think it was actually also for a brand that I had photographed that. And but what actually happened with that was I had just learned to use Lightroom, and so I didn't have my Lightroom sort of presets or anything or sort of workflow in place by that stage. And so I got through to the finals, and then they said to me, then I got this email to say, won't you send through a high-res JPEG of your image so that we can use it for the exhibition? And in my excitement, all I did was I just literally sent through another image, the incorrect one. And unedited, blank and plain. It was the same one, but it was just unedited.
Gotcha.
And so I arrived at the exhibition that evening, and I kind of looked at my picture and I thought, that just looks so wrong. What have I done? Like, what happened? And then I realized when it's sort of at 2:00 the next morning, I was like, oh, I totally forgot. I totally sent through the wrong image. So that was a well learned lesson to make sure that you get your workflow systems right through in Lightroom, because thankfully it wasn't a client, and thankfully it wasn't a huge issue.
Right.
I noticed it, nobody else noticed it, but at that stage I wasn't editing that heavily, so it would have been a minor edit anyway. And
right.
It was all good, but it was a good lesson learned for me to kind of get my workflow systems in place. And
having a good workflow, because you're like, what is up with that image? It's not totally correct.
I just thought, it looks a bit insipid and a bit pale, and it just didn't look right. But like I said, it was only me. My husband said, well, I don't know what you're on about. It looks fine. It looks perfect. And so yeah. But it's all good, and I think that's what the great thing about these competitions is about, is that you actually are able to you're able to put yourself out there and learn from them, and grow. I mean, it's all about growing. We're always growing. We're always learning. You never stop.
Yeah. Well, and the amazing thing about those contests, even if you don't place, because I've submitted before, I've never placed before, but what was fascinating to me is because what happens is you submit your images, there's a variety of different categories and whatnot. But then the panel of judges, it's a rather large panel of judges, are acclaimed food photographers and art directors and people in this community who could even theoretically like hire you, you know, people in publishing who see your work and reach out. And I actually got, you know, again, I didn't place anywhere in the contest, but then the contacts that reached out to me, who connected with me after the fact because they did like my work and they resonated with them was incredible. And so that was well worth, because it does cost money to apply to the contest. But to me, that was an incredible opportunity for professional development, and certainly something I'll apply to every year.
Absolutely. I mean, just being in the finals and that opened so many doors for me. I started from there. I was invited to speak at the photography show in Birmingham a couple of months later, and then through that, I built up connections with Anicon. So yeah, I mean, in terms of career-wise, that projected my career hugely, and just got me out onto a platform because there are so many people all trying to do the same thing, and to get onto a platform is really a great thing. And that's why you just have to enter them all. You've just got to close your eyes and do everything you possibly can. And, you know,
there's no reason to hide your work, you know. And I was a friend of mine who's on Instagram, Nick Bumgardner. For those who don't know him, he's over. If you follow my Instagram stories, I link to him. He's based in Nashville, and he had shared something yesterday that was he'd read out of a Tim Ferriss book, and it completely applies to photography. Is that it's, you know, you have to get your stuff out there. You have to do the work. You have to put it out there, and just, you know, creating it and feeling worried that it's not good enough. Like you know, there is so much to, and the tools that we have available, whether it be a blog or Instagram or Facebook or wherever you're putting this photography contest, that just the simple act of doing it and putting it out there, even if it doesn't yield something today, the long-term impact of that and the ongoing growth that will result from that is huge. And so if you're not sharing your work, I'd highly encourage you to do so.
I agree. And, you know, I think everybody's scared to kind of put their name out there and to sort of, it's almost, there's something about self-promotion that just doesn't feel right. And I mean, that's really tough. And you have to self-promote in this industry. You've got to put yourself out there. You've got to make it sound like you're the best photographer in the world. And in the meantime, again, you're paddling like crazy underneath thinking, I can't do this. But you have to do it. Otherwise, you know, you're never going to get found. You're never going to get spotted. You know, you're not going to be seen. And it's so important to try. And it's not just Instagram. I mean, Instagram is one great platform, but Instagram is not a great indication of whether you've got a good picture. You know, I've seen many pictures that have, or many of my pictures haven't done well on Instagram, but yet they've done well somewhere else. So I know a lot of people really stress about how many likes they're getting for pictures, and there's so many different factors that go into Instagram. We know this. And, you know, Instagram is not a benchmark for whether you're a good photographer or not. So whether you've got 100 followers or 100,000 followers, that doesn't make you a good photographer. There's so many other aspects to it. So that's
Absolutely. No, I couldn't agree. I couldn't agree more. So now, as far as the cookbook world, because that's kind of really where you've moved into in terms of your, or at least where you've got an expertise, and a lot of that being your work with Dr. Karen Lee, who is here in the comment section. Dr. Karen, thank you for being here. So tell me about how that connection was made between you and Karen in order for you to do cookbooks together.
Well, we're all paleo-based bloggers, and I am part of quite a large Facebook group of mainly American bloggers, very well-known cookbook authors in this particular group. And Karen and I just sort of connected. We connected a couple of times before, and then one day she put out this question on the Facebook about one ingredient, one sort of recipe that wasn't working, and I just happened to see it, and I sort of commented, and we started DMing each other, and I was giving her suggestions on what I thought would work. And the next morning I kind of woke up and I thought, well, I don't really have much to do today. Let me see if my suggestions actually really were right. And I made the recipe, and I took a couple of snapshots of literally 2-second snapshots of them, and I sent them through to Karen. And I said, yeah, it worked. Look, they rose and they were biscuits. I think we were making biscuits. And it was like, yeah, it worked. Okay, that's great. And then next thing I got a message from her to say, do you do cookbook photography? And I was like, no, never done it before. So she's like, well, I have a publisher and I'm about to start writing a cookbook and I'm looking for a photographer. Would you be interested? And I mean, it was from there. I mean, I think I've told you in the past, I woke up that morning where I thought, okay, well, I'll make the biscuits. And I said to my husband, I need a big break. I don't know why I'm doing this. I just get up and I bake and I cook and I photograph and I just feel as if I'm on a hamster wheel the whole time. And I just feel as if just not getting that big break. And, I was working, doing things for smaller brands and that sort of thing. And he said to me, it's when it's meant to be, it'll be. And by that evening, I'd had a signed contract. So to do Karen's book. So you just don't know what a day is going to bring, do you?
No. Absolutely. And things change so quickly, but it's a testament to being relentless to showing up, that you had continued to show up and continued to push. And I'm sure there had been other days before that you'd felt like giving up and you'd felt like, what am I doing? Like, is this the right way to go? And pushing through that.
For sure. There are days where I thought I should just go and get myself a day job somewhere, because it's also physically challenging. I mean, when you're on your feet all day, moving props, moving backboards, moving things around, and then cooking and then cleaning and all of that, you start to think, well, why am I doing this? What is the point of all of this?
Yeah.
But it was building a foundation. It was planting my seeds to my garden, and I always say this to people is just keep going, because you are planting the seeds to your garden, and something will start to grow. And your photography style, and you learn a particular style, and you learn to develop a unique style that is recognizable, which I think is important as a photographer. If you start doing too many little jobs for clients, and you start changing what you actually enjoy doing, and you start developing a style that everybody else wants, you don't become a recognizable photographer. And I think that's important, to actually develop those skills so that you do become recognized. Somebody's going through the Instagram feed and they know immediately that that's so-and-so's picture, because it's a style that they can spot.
Yeah. Well, and I love what Karen has wrote here in the comment section. She said the fact not only that you bake the biscuits, but sent you the magazine quality photos, which you're saying, which were simple snaps, but obviously Karen was very impressed with what you had sent through. And, it was that generosity that you led with in that situation, that you were being generous from the outset. And I would say that's such a great MO, that we worry sometimes, like, are we giving things away for free? But I know for me, the vast majority of the clients that I have and that I've worked with long term all came, sorry, my microphone's having issues. The vast majority of the clients that I have and that I continue to work with long term all came out of situations where I was doing the same exact thing, where I saw an opportunity, and not because I was trying to get something out of it, but because I was authentically trying to be helpful to somebody and say, hey, I absolutely love this product. And I just, I can't help but photograph it because that's what I do. And that then turns into a situation where somebody sees proof of concept of your work. And it doesn't have to be like, again, I think back to like Coach's Oats is one of my clients that I've worked with now for over a year. And that all started because I'm a big fan of their product. I buy it all the time. I was bored one morning at breakfast. I mean, this is like same situation. And I made a bowl of oatmeal. It wasn't some sort of glorious photo. Probably took me 15 minutes to shoot. But it was, giving me a chance to be creative. I shared the image with them, and now it's turned into a long-term relationship. And I think that's such a great way to go, because really what differentiates you from any other photographer, certainly style and your skill and all these other things, but that human connection and that generosity and kindness.
For sure. And I think, for me, I particularly like to work with brands that I like. I prefer the smaller startup brands. And for me, a lot of it is on the paleo side as well, because if I'm sampling the products or I'm making something with the products, I want to be able to eat it afterwards as well. So and to give a review or something like that. So I prefer, and here in the UK, I know in the US, paleo is a lot bigger, but here it's still quite a small industry. And, I think the guys who are out there trying to get their products and their brands up and running, it's really tough. And, I often say if I really like a particular product, I'll often say, I'm not in it for the money. Let's just see what we can do to build your brand together. And that's the way I like to function. It's not all about cashing in on something. It's about connecting with people and helping to grow something.
Yeah. Well, and I think the other key was that you were involved in Facebook groups and you were actively involved in a very niche community. I'd say that's also another real great thing. So for those who are out there who are looking to break into specific arenas within food photography, it's about getting to know people and making connections, again, not necessarily for the end goal of, booking work, it's about creating community, but out of those connections and community, because, at the end of the day, it's
absolutely.
And
the thing is you've got to enjoy the product, because if you're working with a product you don't like, it's not going to come across in your pictures. You're not going to put the love and attention that you want to into those pictures. And so I really do think instead of just taking on 101 different products just because it's a business, to really kind of hone your skills into products that you really enjoy and people you like working with. It makes a big difference, because it really does come out in your photography.
Absolutely. There was a recent video on YouTube. I don't know how new it was, if it was recent or not. It was a very good video done by Crous. I'm sure a lot of you in here probably are familiar with his channel. He's a part of the Peter McKinnon crew, but he does videography work and photography work with Lizzie Pierce. And he did a video that I thought was so well done about turning down a $100,000 contract for photography work and his reasons behind that. And I think that was such a helpful video. And I think a lot of people think, how can you turn down work, in situations? And I think that, like you said, it's also important on the other end of the equation, if you do make those connections and then you get a sense that you're not dealing with a wonderful human, for example, Karen Lee is wonderful. And I'm sure you guys have so much fun and a great working relationship, and it's really, mutually beneficial to work together. You enjoy each other, but there are certainly situations where then you'll come across people where you're like, am I just doing this for the money? And I would give a word of caution in those situations. I don't know. Has that ever happened to you before, Donna?
No, I think because I do so much work with the publishers, with the other books that I've done for the same publishers, I haven't dealt with the authors. But with Karen specifically, we deal one-on-one, and we sort of bring the publishers in when we need to. But I think because I am quite selective, because I have my own blog that I'm running, and other things that I do, I don't really do that much brand work anymore. So I don't really work with too many different clients.
Very focused.
I'm fortunate with that. I'm fortunate that I'm actually in a position where I can sort of choose who I really want to work with, which is good.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's a good place to be. So here's a question for you, for those, because there's a lot of people that ask me on a regular basis, how do you get into cookbook photography? Obviously, I think the journeys are unique and how you get there is different. But for anybody who's looking to do that, what would be your advice for them to make the right connections, or where to start in that world?
I think obviously try and make connections with publishers. The publishers do sort of have their regular photographers that they use, and they're quite closed to taking on new photographers, because I think it's a risk. It's a big risk taking on a new photographer, not knowing if they're going to get the goods delivered. I think actually it's about getting into groups where you're meeting authors, and getting out there where you're meeting authors. And particularly on the US side, they do a lot. The US publishers work a lot with bloggers. And so it's getting into blogging groups and getting to meet bloggers that way. And just building connections, I think, particularly with the authors. Here in the UK, it's a lot tougher, because you either if the author is a big name, they have a photographer that will go with them. And if they're not a big name, they get no budget whatsoever for photography. So it really is a little bit of a catch-22. So yeah, I mean, you could get into meeting other photographers and meeting authors, but you might end up having to maybe reduce your costs or your expectations to get into your first couple of books, because it really is about getting into your first couple of books and building a name for yourself and learning the industry, because it's a whole different industry, and understanding the industry and that sort of thing to actually be able to put yourself out there as a proper cookbook photographer. It's about getting out there again. And it's not just, like I said, it's not just the publishers, it's meeting as many people as possible. So meeting stylists, meeting crews, meeting teams, and just getting out there and getting to know people. That's where groups like these Facebook groups and like our London group are so good, because you get to meet other people. You can maybe go and assist on shoots and kind of get into the industry that way.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I think about, the cookbooks I've done, it was because, I knew the authors, and I knew the authors before they had cookbooks on their radars. But then, once they had cookbooks, they're like, well, would you do it? And then that's the entree into the publisher connections. Cause then you're a known quantity at that point. Yeah.
And I think, a lot of cookbooks are quite niche these days. So for me, because we're in quite a niche community in terms of the paleo keto community, that's perfect. You need to be in a niche community, because those are the environments that you're going to find bloggers who are looking for photographers. The celebrities and that all have their whole crews behind them, and they're not really looking for photographers. They've got established photographers that they're working with. So if you try to create it as a career, definitely to get into the blogging community.
I love it. Yeah. Well, good. Well, one other thing. So now throughout all of your kind of process and journey, you've also come into teaching as well through Anicon. A lot of people will say Nikon here in the US. That's kind of how we say it, but I believe the correct, accurate pronunciation is Anicon. And so you do education with them, yes?
Yeah, so I do training. I do food photography training at Anicon. It's a new thing that we've just started, and I think it's great. I mean, the response has been incredible. And I've done 2 workshops with them already, and we have another 2 booked. We actually have 1 workshop booked for September, I think. And then we've got a retreat book for next year, which is going to be incredible. It's only 6 spaces, but this is the ultimate retreat. It's with myself and Neil, who's the head of Anicon School of Photography in London. And it's going to be 3 days where we're just going to go out to Devon, and we've got this beautiful little spot that we're going to. And they're going to be doing all the food and the food prep, and we're going to be photographing in the restaurants, but then using Neil's skills to do landscape photography, and all sorts of just different lighting setups, and just a whole combination of different scenarios. Because I think if you're doing restaurant shoots, it's good to get exposure to different lighting. If I do a restaurant shoot, I like to do exterior shots as well. So it's to learn those skills from a combination of different photographers is really a great opportunity. So I'm so excited about that. That's going to be in May. I think it's the 30th of May. And that's sorry, my dog's barking.
Some great hands-on experience though, because some of those things, it's the easiest to learn it by seeing it happen in front of you. And so for anybody who's interested, in either of those workshops that you've got coming up, I've got those linked down below. So definitely go check those out. Those sound like incredible opportunities for some learning. My question is, because I'm sure other people ask it, is can you bring a Canon camera to a Nikon education session?
I think you can. I know that we run a coffee, cakes and cameras, which is a talk, and then it's sort of hanging out with other photographers. And I know definitely you can bring a Canon to that. I know that Neil has worked with Canon cameras in the past, so he does understand Canon cameras. I'm not too sure about the actual retreats and the workshops, but unless I don't see a reason why not, because the one great thing about the Nikon workshops is that you have access to the different lenses that the school will loan you for the workshop. So if you come in and you don't have the correct lens, or you want to try different lenses, that's great. You can actually try the different lenses. So unfortunately, that wouldn't be able to happen if you had a Canon. That's where but I think maybe they can email Anicon and ask them, Anicon School of Photography in London, and ask. Otherwise, I'll see if I can find out information. I don't know how to get that to you. But certainly some of the things, definitely you can use a Canon. You can use another camera.
Brand a camera. Well, very good. Well, no, I think that it sounds like such a wonderful opportunity. So for anybody who's interested in that, definitely go check out the links below. I've also got all of Donna's information so you can follow along with her journey and just drool over her beautiful food photography and get connected with her. But one of the other things that I wanted to talk about in real quick before we jump into some Q&A here at the end, a funny little thing that had happened working with Karen, because of course you're in the UK and then Dr. Karen Lee is in New York, correct?
Yeah.
And so, and this is something that I think, we don't always think about when we're used to using very specific ingredients that are native to where we are that may not be globally used. So tell everybody about the spaghetti squash.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, that's one thing that Karen and I have learned in our 3 cookbooks together is that not all ingredients are the same. So for the second book, going through this, I received the manuscript because that is, I mean, we are a challenge being on the other side of the world. And so I received a manuscript and I will then shop and cook and style and photograph the recipes. And going through the manuscripts, I came across one of the recipes, which was for spaghetti squash. And Karen, I know you're laughing right now. And I kind of sent Karen a text. And so, no, I played it cool. And I thought, okay, well, I'll find spaghetti squash. I've never seen it before, but I'll find it. And I got the word out there. I put pictures out on Instagram, and I did everything I possibly could to try and find a spaghetti squash. And my one main supplier, who are connected to all the farmers in the UK, came back to me and they said, you will only get a spaghetti squash for about 2 weeks of the year in the UK. And they are so rare, they're just impossible to find. Now, they're all over the US, apparently. And so I was like, what am I going to do? You can't even substitute a spaghetti squash with anything else. So, so I got on the phone to Karen and I was like, Karen, I just cannot find a spaghetti squash. I don't know, we might have to get another photographer to do that shoot. And she was like, absolutely no ways. We are going to make a plan. And a couple of days, and then I got a text to say, spaghetti squash is in the post, is being couriered to you. And a couple of days later,
how many did she send you?
She sent me two individual ones, 2 separate ones, in case they got caught up in customs and were not let through customs. But a few days later, they arrived on my doorstep, my 2 spaghetti squash. But then I was terrified to cook them. I thought, what happens if this goes wrong? How do I get back on the phone to Karen and say, Karen, can you resend me another 2 spaghetti squash?
That's like high stakes situation.
Absolutely. I mean, it's terrifying. It's pressure. Oh. I mean, but the beauty of it was that I think it's true that Karen and I realized that because the books are sold internationally, they're sold in the UK, they're sold around the world. We actually realized that, she realized that, she started to put variations in her books. So this latest book that I'm working on for her, I'm currently halfway through one of her new book. We actually had a meeting before she submitted her final recipes to the publishers. And we just went through the list of ingredients and we worked on alternatives that I knew that I was able to get here and that were also available in South Africa and, in different parts of the world, just to make it more international and more global, because, you can get the books anywhere. And the last thing you want is your reader to look at a recipe and go, oh, I can't get those ingredients. I'm going to just pass that recipe or not buy the book. And so I think it's been really good, and I've learned the names of so many different ingredients that are actually the same in the UK, but you just have different names for them over there. And it's just about finding those ingredients, tracking them down.
Well, and that is such a tricky thing being a food photographer. And there's certain situations when you need a very specific something. And the quests that sometimes the wild goose chases, as I call them, that you end up on trying to find things. But when you finally get it and when you finally execute that image in the way that you wanted, that there's nothing more satisfying.
Exactly. It's like jackpot. I did it.
Did it.
It can be a little stressful trying to find the ingredients. But it's all good. And, I mean, that's a beautiful thing about our relationship. So I'll get in touch with Karen and I'll say, I can't find this. And she'll get onto it, So between the two of us, we make it happen. We make it work. And I mean, initially I was terrified about working with someone on the other side of the world. That was one of my things, one of my hesitations with her. I said that I live on the other side of the world. And she said, no, we'll just make this happen. She got in touch with the publishers and she said, she lives in the UK, but I really want her as my photographer. And they were like, well, as long as the images come through correct, we're quite happy with that. And it's just been so I think the moral of the story as well is that if you're looking to get into cookbook photography, you don't just have to stick to your country. You can try in other areas as well. It does work. It can happen.
There's a whole big, beautiful world out there. And Karen Lee says, 2 spaghetti squash to the UK cost $98, in case anybody was curious.
That's why I couldn't text her and ask her for another 2.
Fortunately, it all worked out. So what are those? Because now I'm sure folks are curious. I'm sure you could Google Dr. Karen Lee and you could end up, you could find those books and be able to reference those. Yes?
Yeah. They're all available on Amazon. The latest one is actually up for pre-order at the moment. We're still busy shooting it, but it's available on Amazon for pre-order. And I have to say, I think it's one of the best books ever. It's just, I love the recipes, and it's just, my family are delighted every evening when we sit down to a selection of different Karen dishes. They always go, yes, Karen, you nailed this one again.
Nailed it. How many are you doing in a day?
Well, it's 80 recipes in total, and on average I can do about 4 a day. Some days it's less, some days it's more, but physically I can probably handle about 5, because it's all that I start working at about 5 o'clock in the morning. I get a delivery from an online. I get my online delivery that arrives at 5 in the morning, and then I start all the prep work. I start the chopping and the prepping, and by about 10 o'clock in the morning, I'm ready to start shooting a couple of dishes, and then sort of by 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm done for the day. But by then it's tiring, it's a lot of physical work, moving backboards and changing setups, because every setup is different. I don't shoot on the same setup. So it can be, but I do take Saturdays and Sundays off, or I do take the odd day off in between, because it's so important for creativity to take a break and just see the world and see other things besides cooking and photography. So I do, that is really important. So even though I'm on a sprint marathon, I still like to take time off, just so that I can, when I do get back to it, I look at it with fresh eyes.
Absolutely. Oh, looks like I lost my microphone there again. Well, I've got a ton of questions coming through in the Q&A. For those of you who've got questions, we'll spend about another 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes here, and we'll wrap up. But feel free to drop your questions in the comment section so that we can chat here with Donna while we still have her. Let me go through the questions here. Let's see. We had lots of good conversations. Looks like y'all are connecting with each other. Let's see. Let's see. It's probably still coming across. Well, I really appreciate you spending the time with us this morning here, Donna. It's such a treat to get to know you and your story and your background and expertise, because it's something pretty incredible that you've built.
Well, thank you. I mean, I don't think I built it. It just happened. Just happened. It's just layers. It's like an onion. It's just layers. It's there was no big picture. There was no plan. It was just rolling with the punches and just going for it.
That's right. I think that's the story of many photographers is showing up and doing something creative and kind of one thing after another, but you can't be afraid to pursue it when all of a sudden those opportunities arrive.
Well, that is a big thing. It's about not saying no. And I know I said earlier that I was terrified about taking on Karen's books, but I mean, once I got into it, and I find with a lot of big jobs that I do take on, initially I am hesitant, and I think, am I actually going to be able to pull this off? And I've got to sort of talk myself into it and say, you can do this. It's all good. It's all okay. and yeah, once you're actually in it, it's a lot of fun and it's great, and you end up having a great time. And especially if it's a new project that I've never done before, or it's a if it's a high pressure job. But at the end of the day, I think you've just got to have confidence in your abilities and know that just go back to basics.
Well, and I always say, what's the worst that could happen, right? Like what would be the worst thing that could happen, right? We're not doing, brain surgery here. We're not saving lives. Like,
the worst that can happen is you apologize to your client and you do a reshoot. Thankfully I've never had to do that, but I think that you just have to say sorry, it was a mistake and we can fix it. How do we fix it?
Absolutely.
But I think to say no to opportunities is probably more detrimental to you than taking on the opportunity and not giving it a go.
That's how you rise to the occasion. Well, we've got some questions coming through. Nikki wants to know, what's the best way to submit to publishers? So if you're going to start to just make some connections in that route, what would you send them? Would you send them images? How would
I think you need to get in touch with the creative directors at the different publishers and try and connect with them. And then obviously, and then submit. I was asked to submit 10 images via WeTransfer, and just make sure that your images are good quality and that they've exported properly. You can't submit to a creative director a badly exported image. So just make sure that you Google how to export at a high res at a good quality, and make sure that your images are absolutely spot on if you are submitting. A lot of the time they might just bank it. And then if they need a photographer at the last minute, they might go back to it. So you may not get a response immediately. And I find that so much across this industry is a lot of the time you do put yourself out there and you don't hear anything back. But you might get something back in 6 months' time when suddenly there's been we need a photographer. Let's pull in so-and-so who submitted some images. So you might not initially get a response, but you never know. Just keep going.
Yeah. Well, and Joel Grimes says it great in terms of the way he does his marketing. He says that you need to turn yourself into that photographer that's the top of mind. And somebody's not going to just remember you from one contact. Now, not that we're running around harassing people, but as you have new work to share on, every 3 to 6 months, if you've got something new to share with them, that, making sure to share that and send new images. And so that once that maybe, a year from now, or they get into a tight spot, or, their regular list of photographers, they've gone through the whole list and, oh gosh, nobody's available, that you're the first person top of mind.
Absolutely. And I think also when you submit, when you reach out to make contact with a creative director, I would put just a sample of 2 or 3 images of your best images on the actual email, because a lot of the times these people are so busy, they're not going to click through to a link and they're not going to download 10 pictures off WeTransfer. So they need to be able to, as they open the email, they need to be able to see 3 pictures, and then they'll know straight away if you're the kind of photographer that they're looking for. So I think just a couple of samples that are actually embedded into the email and that are not connected to any links is pretty straight in their face as they open that email is pretty important.
Yeah. We've got a lot of people saying they're excited about Karen's Instant Pot recipes.
They are so good.
Yeah, I love the Instant Pot. The Instant Pot is the best.
Well, we had our first one was an air fryer, and then the other 2 have been Instant Pot recipes.
Okay, is that what you're working on right now? Is more Instant Pot recipes?
It's Instant Pot, and it's no thaw Instant Pot, so it's straight from freezer to the Instant Pot, which is also pretty interesting. I said to Karen, "Are you even able to do that?" And she was like, "Yeah, there's 80 recipes coming."
Oh my word. Creativity knows no bounds. Manuel wants to know, before you started working full-time as a photographer, did you have a side job or a different job?
I was, I initially started working in a bank, very different to what I'm doing now. I was a financial consultant for Investec Bank. And then I stopped working and I had children. I had my 2 daughters. And I was a full-time mom, full-time stay-at-home mom. But while I was at home, I did start a couple of businesses on the side, and sort of, I think I'm a naturally creative person. So I was always looking for something to do. And it's interesting because all of those, some were baking with, for home industries, and another was art, and then another was a gift hamper business. And between all of these businesses, I look back now, and they were actually all the foundations to what I do now. So the one was my cooking skills, the one was my composition skills, and the other one was my styling skills. So it's between these different careers that I've had in the past, they've all sort of come together on the photography side.
That's pretty incredible.
Never always.
So trust your creative skills. See where they take you.
Absolutely, it all counts.
I love it. Well, very good. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up here. Thank you so much to everybody who joined us here for the live stream today. And again, thank you to Donna. Just one announcement. Those of you who were on the full-time framework wait list, the email went out for the September open enrollment. So that is officially open if you want to jump into that. I actually have that also linked in the comments or in the description box below. So anybody who wants to join me for that course, you're more than welcome to. But Donna, any closing words, any words of wisdom to send out our friends here today?
I just, first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody who's joined us today. And secondly, I think there's just such an amazing community that we're in. I love your Bite Shop Facebook group, and I think the food photographers are so positive, and I love particularly on your Facebook group where people submit their pictures for criticism, for constructive criticism. And I think it's good to get involved in these things and to put your pictures out there, even if you're first time and you don't know whether it's a good shot or not. Put it out there, because the feedback is so good, and the feedback, particularly in your group, is so positive. And I mean, you might not get everybody loving your image, but if you want everybody to love your image, put it out to family and friends. If you want to get constructive criticism, put it into a proper group where you're going to get constructive criticism. And that's the only way you grow. And I love your group, and I think it's amazing. So I think everybody, if they're not part of your Facebook group, they should join it.
Good. Yeah, absolutely. Feel free to join us. It's facebook.com/groups/The Bite Shot. I'll be sure to link it in the comments section after we wrap the video. But thank you so much, Donna. You're an inspiration and a wonderful part of this community, and we look forward to following all of your continued adventures. And for anybody who hasn't already, be sure to check out the links to her upcoming workshops and retreat through Anicon, and then also be sure to check out the pre-order for Dr. Karen S. Lee's newest keto. Is it keto or is paleo? Paleo Instant Pot Cookbook. So be sure to check that out. What's that?
It's a no thought for all the busy people.
Perfect. I love it. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Everybody take care of yourselves. Go out there and be creative, and we'll see you next week. Okay.
Thank you.
Bye guys. Bye.
Bye.
All right.